with a group of Jeffrey Epstein survivors speaking publicly on Capitol Hill yesterday, calling on Congress to pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act and release all files from the Justice Department's investigation into the deceased sex offender. Many of the women shared their deeply personal stories, some for the first time, of sexual abuse at the hands of Epstein and his convicted co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, all while demanding transparency.
That is why the Epstein Files Transparency Act is so essential. It requires the Department of Justice release all the records related to Epstein and Maxwell investigations, flight logs, immunity deals, internal communications, and even the records surrounding Epstein's detention and death. And crucially, it forbids withholding documents simply because of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. This is about ending secrecy wherever abuse of power takes root.
We want this bill to pass. It is very important. Okay, and we need transparency. We are tired of looking at the news and seeing Jeffrey Epstein's name and saying that this is a hoax. We are tired of it. We are done. We're not going to be silenced, and I hope that my voice will bring other survivors and other victims to come along and speak up so that we can be more of a stronger voice and louder.
And so what is your message to President Trump on this?
Listen, I don't want to send a direct message to him. I'm already scared enough. Yeah, just pass the vote, listen to us. This is not a hoax.
We are not asking for pity. We are here demanding accountability, and I'm demanding justice. Congress must choose. Will you continue to protect predators, or will you finally protect survivors? And also, I would like to announce here today, us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now, together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know who were regularly in the Epstein world. And it will be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else is involved. Stay tuned for more details.
For so many years, it felt like Epstein's criminal behavior was an open secret. Not only did many others participate in the abuse, it is clear that many were aware of his interest in girls and very young women and chose to look the other way because it benefited them to do so. They wanted access to his circle and his money. Their choice to align with his power left those of us who had been harmed by this man and his associates feeling very isolated.
That news conference was organized by Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California and Republican Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky. You see them speaking there. Those two are currently pushing for a discharge petition, which is a maneuver that would essentially force a vote on releasing the Epstein files, even if leadership is saying they don't want to have it. Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia also joined the news conference to support the legislation and the survivors.
You're questioning, why can't they just name the names? What you don't realize is they just told their stories of being raped and being abused, being victimized, being manipulated. They saw the most powerful people in the world in his pictures, and they saw him with those people. Can you imagine how terrifying it would be to name names like that? These are some of the richest, most powerful people in the world that could sue these women into poverty and homelessness. Yeah, it's a scary thing to name names, but I will tell you, I'm not afraid to name names. And so if they want to give me a list, I will walk in that Capitol on the House floor and I'll say every damn name that abused these women.
And those women said at one point during that press conference that they plan on compiling a list of names themselves that would be private. And if someone wanted to prosecute, then they could move forward with that list of names. But the victims trying to take back their power again in that press conference. But as that news conference was going on, President Trump spoke from the Oval Office offering this response.
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president.
Meanwhile, we're getting new reaction directly from the White House about that discharge petition being pushed by Congressman Khanna and Massey. A White House official issued this statement to NBC News, which asserts that any Republican who signs on to the discharge petition would be considered a, quote, hostile act against the administration. Congressman Massey said the White House is currently working to make sure Republicans vote against the petition. We're having a little bit of noise here in the control room, but we're okay, I promise. The Kentucky Republican called that, quote, disgusting. All House Democrats are expected to sign the petition, meaning a total of 6 Republican signatures is required to reach the 218-member threshold. One of our cameras was making a lot of noise there this morning. But as of this morning, there are 214 total signatures on that discharge petition, 4 of which come from Republicans, including Congressman Massey, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Nancy Mace. At the same time, House Republican leadership, including Speaker Mike Johnson, is encouraging members not to sign on. They say the Oversight Committee and the files it's releasing through the subpoena to the Department of Justice makes an additional bill unnecessary.
They're already producing and putting out there the documents that are uncovered. The White House is in full compliance. The administration is willfully complying with the subpoenas because they want maximum transparency as well. I talked to the president himself last night about this. He says, get it out there, put it all out there. So this is going to be an ongoing effort. It will be bipartisan, which is great. And the Oversight Committee's effort, this is really important to point out, goes further than the discharge petition.
Joining us now with a lot to talk about, congressional reporter for Semaphore, Eleanor Mueller. So you and I were both out there. It was hot, but more importantly, it was very powerful to hear these women, in some cases for the first time, share their stories and sort of make note of the fact that they have made these sorts of pushes before. And for them, it's never been political. It's been about taking back their own power. And also in some cases, and Suhas Subramaniam, the congressman, said this to us yesterday, I don't think I fully realized this. A lot of these victims say that they're not even sure of what happened to them as they were being trafficked, and they don't have transparency into what DOJ has or doesn't have around them. And so what is the impact of hearing these stories, hearing these survivors say, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, it doesn't matter, it's not political, just give me transparency and closure here. Does that change anything?
It's super compelling. And I think the most interesting part for a lot of people was the questions the victims got at the end about whether or not House Republican leaders are valid in saying that Massey's bill could potentially expose innocent people by releasing too much information. You know, the congressman has come forth. He's called that a lie. There's provisions in the bill that would redact confidential information. And we saw several of the victims, you know, pretty adamantly calling out that what they think is a true to say, you know, we will not be exposed. We don't know who they're trying to protect. It's not us. Yeah. And so we'll see if that changes any minds. We did not see any additional Republicans sign on to the discharge petition yesterday.
And so that's them speaking directly to Speaker Johnson's central criticism of this bill, which is that it's written inartfully, I think is one of the words that he said, because it risks releasing too much private information about survivors. And there you have the survivors saying, actually, we're good. We would just rather the transparency here. And I thought it was so striking the way that many of them just directly addressed the president through the camera. Yeah. I think ultimately, which of these ends up winning out? Because you've got the discharge petition that needs just 2 more signatures at least in order to force leadership's hand. And then, of course, you've got the Oversight Committee with subpoena power. I take that as a valid point. Which of these ends up being the true vehicle for transparency, if either of them?
I think it's, you know, valid to say that the discharge petition would be a much fuller breadth of transparency. You know, that's why these women are calling for it. They're saying that to adopt this resolution the House adopted yesterday that basically just says, you know, hey, Justice Department, give us what you want to give us, is not going to bring them the same level of clarity and justice that actually requiring that they release all of these files would give them. Yeah. And so we'll see what happens. I mean, Massey was saying yesterday to reporters after that press conference that all Republicans are on the table as far as folks he hopes signs on. But we heard multiple members tell us that they still share these concerns that Johnson has raised about privacy, that they don't have any plans to sign on to the discharge petition, even, you know, when they were told by reporters to their face. The victims themselves say that they're not concerned, that they want this bill passed.
I think it's going to be such a crucial point, very much a live ball here on Capitol Hill, but it's one of several right now because Congress came back and they have such a lengthy to-do list, including one story that you've been following, which is Senate Republicans racing to install one of President Trump's economic advisors on the Federal Reserve Board. You write about this in your latest piece for Semafor. What can you tell us about the fact that they're sending up a nominee for the Fed board, not for Lisa Cook's seat, but it does show, in a sense, that it's business as usual, even though there's nothing business as usual about what's happening within the Fed right now?
It's fascinating because for so many Senate Republicans, they've long said their red line is independence of the Federal Reserve. You know, a lot of these guys are staunch allies of Wall Street. Wall Street does not like uncertainty. Jeopardizing the Federal Reserve's independence promotes uncertainty. And this is where that's put to the test. You know, this is where they have an opportunity to push back on Trump's attempt to remove Lisa Cook, the federal governor, over these so far unproven allegations of mortgage fraud. They could hold up this other Fed nomination. You know, they could be really hard on him in the hearing later today, ask tough questions about Trump's plans for the Fed, you know, whether or not there's more they could be doing. Whether or not we see that, I don't know. Multiple folks have told us that in private meetings with Murin, they've brought up, you know, the importance that he respect the Federal Reserve's independence. In his prepared testimony for the hearing, he said that he does. But whether or not they actually act on any of it, I think, is increasingly unlikely.
And this is a Congress that also is dealing with people who came before them, said one thing, and then have gone about and done another after confirmation hearings. And so it's a Congress that has been burned before, not least of all by someone like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his latest actions on vaccines and the CDC. He's also going to be up on Capitol Hill today. It's going to be busy. Congressional reporter for Semafor, Eleanor Mueller, got your work cut out for you as always. Her latest piece is available to read online right now.